there's been a lot of discussion since I introduced the original motion, so I'll just briefly say, without repeating everything that's been said by my colleagues, the lack of urgency on this large corruption scandal is appalling to me. Like, every time there's a report, whether it's the investigations by various parliamentary committees, whether it's new documents produced by the whistleblowers, whether it was then new testimony from the former president of SDTC, who declared a number of shocking things about the way the board operated. Then we had the incredible Auditor General's report finding almost $400 million misappropriated. Every time there's an investigation, now the ethics commissioner, and we uncover a deeper and deeper and deeper level of conflict of interest, self-dealing, and frankly, feathering their own beds for their financial interest in the 9 Liberal directors appointed by the Liberals that were outlined in the Auditor General's report. And the minister who cares so much about this unfroze the funds. The fund and the slush fund is now open again. The only difference is they've moved the slush fund to another group headed by a bunch of former retired bureaucrats, which in their testimony before this committee gave zero confidence, or before another committee, zero confidence that they had any ability or idea of how to stop this corruption that's gone on, or that there'll be any new processes. There should not be any spending in this fund going on right now. It shouldn't be happening until all of these reports are delved into, and we've got more shocking testimony, and we need to get on this, because what's happening is as the Liberals and the Bloc and the NDP don't want to bother doing this for another month and a half to 2 months, money of taxpayers is going out the door to these same companies, in all likelihood in stage 3, stage 4, whatever, of former Liberal directors now still benefiting from their insider job of being on this committee. And so I know everybody's got lots of other things to do. We all do. But I don't think there's anything more important than dealing with the fact that this is 10 times the size of the sponsorship scandal during the Chrétien Liberal government. That was $42 million. This is almost $400 million so far on every investigation. And every time there is a report, the number grows. And it's shocking to me that members of Parliament in this committee think that this isn't of greatest urgency to delve into now with the Ethics Commissioner, that we can wait. We can wait until the House comes back in September, and maybe we'll spare a single meeting. Spare a single meeting to $400 million and growing of taxpayer money that has gone to conflicts of interest and been spent illegally, according to the Auditor General, outside the terms that it was granted to the Green Slush Fund. That there isn't a sense of urgency here to people to stop this and fix it and get to the bottom of it. That they want to wait till the middle of September to give one whole meeting to it. Come on, guys. Like, this is why we oppose the amendments to the meetings, because our desire as Conservatives, of which, why are we having an emergency meeting today? We're having an emergency meeting today because we put forward a request to have these urgent meetings because of the Ethics Commissioner's report that came out last week. And I thought that the Bloc and the NDP thought it was also urgent because they co-signed the letter. But apparently now they come to the meeting and it's not urgent. It can wait. So I would urge members to reconsider their change of heart that's happened in this meeting to support the Liberals in hiding and covering up the corruption in the Green Slush Fund, because that's what it is. More delay is more cover-up. And if you vote for this amendment, in my view, you're voting to continue the Liberal cover-up in the Green Slush Fund.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. I see no other speaker.
No.
Oh, Mr. Massey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would like to speak for this, especially after that intervention, which is rather unfortunate because the Conservatives actually talked themselves out of one meeting that they would have had earlier had they actually moved appropriately on this. And first of all, I want to acknowledge that what we're talking about here specifically, when you do the math, which has always been the Conservatives' mortal enemy, there's actually 9 business days that we're talking about a difference here, because if we can't get the witnesses in the next 4 weeks, the time between that time period ending and then when we assume our responsibilities back here in the House on that Monday is 9 business days. And so that's what we're talking about as a difference here. And so I think it's pretty rich to actually come here and then chastise ourselves in the block for agreeing to actually have a meeting to sit down with responsibility and in earnest to try to find a path forward, like we promised. When we actually dealt with this issue last to Parliament, we promised that we would return back to this once we got the reports. And we did so immediately when I was contacted right away, and it came over here. But just because the Conservatives are insisting on spending tens of thousands of dollars to have this 9 business days in advance, they try to chastise ourselves in the block for trying to make Parliament work. And that's terribly unfortunate, especially given the fact that these members also filibustered days of this committee last Parliament. So for all their sanctimony about having to get to this right away, we could have actually been doing this work on last Parliament. But what we had last Parliament was the Conservatives filibustering on auto files and other things like that, chewing up this committee, chewing up other committees on a regular basis, not just on an individual aspect for here, submitting multiple motions, multiple places, multiple times, and they did so consistently. And if we want to talk about scandals, I mean, I've been around here long enough to see a lot of scandals. I mean, I could just list off a whole series of here from the there's the Liberal scandals on certain things, but there's also the Harper administration scandals, everything from electoral fraud to a whole series of different interventions when it comes to Airbus, comes to former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. I mean, it could go on and on and on. We could do the relevance, we could do all those different things, but at the same time, we want to get to the subject matter here at place, and that's why we actually sat down here. So the request that we have here in front of us to actually have the 2 meetings in this time frame was even at the sense a little bit optimistic. I'm trying to guarantee that we can get 2 independent witnesses. We actually can get prepared and ready, get House of Commons resources to restart down here, and then on the same time do so when we're looking at basically a week and a half difference of when it can take place. So I don't think it's very unreasonable, and I don't think that the Bloc is playing games on this. I think they came prepared to this meeting to find a solution with an alternative. I've been in discussions with different people, and it's been publicly chastised by the Conservatives to come here and then saying that we're actually in cahoots to trying to stop for accountability of this is absolutely wrong for every single time we've actually agreed and had these meetings. And I won't let that stand on the public record, because the public record shows that we have been pushing this issue, even when I couldn't get the things that I wanted for the workers. And when we talk about the workers here, the Conservatives have not put forth anything on the whistleblowers here. And we have had testimony the last time we had here, not a single one of the organizations even mentioned the families and the whistleblowers of that. And I tried to actually work to get an amendment in the House of Commons on one of their official opposition days motion, but it was worded in a way that it couldn't allow for that. It was nobody's fault, just the way that it was. But we have families of these members. They just talk about, basically the Liberals and the scandals and so forth and just trying to tar it with that. Well, what about all the workers that actually had to leave their job, had to sign non-disclosure clauses that still haven't been dealt with today? What about the workers that couldn't actually carry their pensions over, had to cash out? What about the workers that actually had to find different types of employment? And then the new system that I have in place still doesn't give them the ultimate protection that I want, is that full public service protection as whistleblowers. We have all those issues there. So, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Chair, I take offense to the fact that it is characterization that this committee is not working. I take offense to the characterization the NDP and the Bloc are playing games with this when we came here to do the proper work and do the right thing. So over a few business days, they want to cheapen this entire process down, which is entirely significant. And even if we actually have those things that take place, and we did it within their time frame, you know what happens, Mr. Chair? We can't do anything as a committee till the House resumes anyways. There's very little that we can do until the House resumes with regards to this. We can't bring it to the chamber. We can't do any of those things necessary as well. And so now we have a chance to prepare and get ready and do something actually meaningful. And I think it's unfortunate that they characterize us and to go back in this House of Commons. I guess this is what the Conservatives want, is to go back to a dysfunctional House, the House of Commons. Because on an issue right here, and you look at consistently, even the Liberals have voted consistently to actually have hearings on this. Yes, there's been differences about how we approach it, who gets to come at certain times, the amount of time that's there, but they are on the record as well looking at this issue. And to do that, as we warm up to get back here in September to do hard work that's necessary and to poison the well right away when there's sincere efforts to do so, well, fine. They get their moment of glory, their clips, all those things that they want. But at the same time, they will not get what they want in this committee unless they actually cooperate in the terms of trying to make sure things are going to be done with sincerity, because that's the history of this committee. I'm sticking with it when I go back to make this place work. And if they want to come here and do these types of cheap tactics and games over serious issues, then shame on them. Just because they didn't get a few days of business time that they could actually have it, it's whining, complaining, sad, irresponsible, and shows a lack of class for a party that's supposed to be saying that they're going to be the next government.
Thank you, MP
No, that's
Massey.
a clip. Well said, Brian.
Mr. Perkins.
I appreciate what the NDP member has said, but let's be clear. Our original motion, which he's well aware, was to have the meeting within 2 weeks, and to accommodate him, we provided some generosity in going the 4 weeks to get it on his schedule. It could happen in 2 weeks. I'm willing to have this meeting tomorrow, but the member is got a busy schedule, as we all do, and so we're trying to accommodate. So it's totally incorrect to say that we weren't trying to accommodate. Now, what the member has voted for, and what the Liberals have voted for, and what the Bloc has voted for, is to turn 2 meetings or 4 hours of hearings into 1 meeting 2 months from now, almost 2 months from now, to cram it all together and then move on. Now, you can disagree with that classification, but that's the change to our motion that the NDP and Bloc and Liberals are supporting. And that's what I oppose, and I'll leave it there because I still believe that this needs to be dealt with now, not sometime in the distant future.
MP Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little bit taken aback by Mr. Massey's comments. He talked about 9 business days difference. What is he talking about? The motion that Conservatives put forward provides for hearings, 2 hearings, both involving the Ethics Commissioner and Ms. Verscheren within the next 2 weeks. So this notion that it's 9 business days difference is simply not true. He says that Conservatives have difficulty with math. It seems that he has difficulty with math, with the greatest of respect. And he talks about sad and irresponsible. I'll tell you what is sad and irresponsible, and that is the fact that the NDP take their orders from their boss,
Point of order,
named Justin
Chair.
Trudeau.
Yeah, just one
Point of
second,
order.
MP Cooper. Yes, Madam Namath.
So the motion that I was sent, that Mr. Perkins submitted, clearly says 4 weeks. I don't know what Mr. Cooper is talking about, but Mr. Perkins' motion says 4 weeks, which takes us to August 28th. And if you add up the days, it is in fact 9 days. So I think I know that the Conservatives like to deal in misinformation, but let's stick with the facts. The motion clearly says 4 weeks.
Thank you, MP Dama, for your point of order. I tend to agree. Looking at the calendar, it does call for 4 weeks, but Mr. Cooper, floor
no,
is yours.
very simply, we could be meeting next week if the Conservative motion had passed.
Point of
we could
order.
be meeting the following week.
Point of order, Mr. Massey.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, though, he just agreed with the motion again, so maybe we can get clarification that, insisting that it was 2 weeks when it's not 2 weeks it's 4 weeks. So I hope the member can at least within 4 weeks. Yeah, within 4 weeks. So it could happen at the end of the 4 weeks. So we're not talking about 2
It could
weeks.
happen tomorrow.
Yeah, but it's not. You put it in for 4 weeks, so it means that you're actually willing to do it within 4 weeks.
Thank you, MP Massey.
Not
MP
tomorrow,
Cooper.
because you want to go to your event.
The reality is within 4 weeks allows for the chair and the clerk to invite witnesses. So chances are of it happening tomorrow are very slim.
And we
but Mr.
wanted
Cooper,
it,
the floor is yours.
And we wanted it within 2 weeks. That's what we initially wanted, and we were prepared to provide within 4 weeks, but it certainly means that the committee could be at work. So this notion that it's 9 days is nonsense. And what is sad and irresponsible is that the NDP take their marching orders from Justin Trudeau. Here you have $400 million that improperly went out the door including $330 million to companies in which Liberal insiders padded their pockets. And what are the NDP doing? They're doing the bidding of the Liberals. They're doing the bidding of Justin Trudeau to delay hearings, to delay the ability of this committee to do its work, to hold a lawbreaker, Ms. Verscheren, accountable, to get answers about the 20 additional conflicts that the Auditor General identified that perhaps the Ethics Commissioner ought to start looking into, and to see that taxpayers get a refund, but taxpayers get their money back, as this current Minister of Industry, who professes to be so concerned about this scandal, but did nothing, did absolutely nothing, as his Assistant Deputy Minister sat in on each and every meeting in which there were 186 conflicts until it hit the media. And then he said, oh, well, I'm now concerned. And then in the face of the Auditor General's report, what does he do? He starts releasing funds back to the very same corrupt Liberal insiders. It's a total and complete racket, and it's disappointing that Mr. Massey is going along with the Liberals to delay the work of this committee, which could be meeting as early as next week, to, as a starting point, hear from the Auditor General and Ms. Verscheren. It's very disappointing.
Thank you, MP Cooper. I have Brian Massey, René Villemur, and MP Brock. Monsieur Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to reconfirm what we're actually doing here, and this within the 4 weeks, and then the difference between then and then when we can go is that. And to suggest that somehow, I mean, I'd be interested to know the procedural tactics that were going to be employed to actually get the Ethics Commissioner or somebody else here tomorrow. Less than a few hours' notice is kind of almost sad to hear that as an argument, because I think it's the members better than that, suggesting that we can somehow have the power to do that, especially given the fact that we had to actually assign this as a special media. And so I don't know how we would subpoena somebody within a matter of hours or days for that, and why we would do that to a commissioner of the Crown that reports to all of Parliament, who has been cooperative in doing their job related to this, seems rather abusive, that's for sure. And if we want to talk about scandals, and if the Conservatives want to do that, I mean, I have a whole list of here. The No-Dona issue, we had the illegal transfer of funds, we have the Phoenix pay system. I mean, I could go on for hours and hours and hours, because I lived those Harper scandals. We have Dean Del Mastro, we have others of electoral fraud from the East Coast in particular. We have a whole series of different things. But again, this is something that I think we want to get to, and I think we're being responsible for doing so, and then to be attacked by it is unfortunate, because I think it just cheapens the entire issue. And again, I'm rather stunned in some respects that there wasn't an interest to actually cooperate to get what they could have achieved. And I guess maybe they're having a tantrum right now because they came into the meeting with probably a stronger position. What they're getting now is because they played their hand so poorly. And that's the end result at the end of the day. There was actually 2 meetings with 2 hours, which were agreeable, which I spoke to at the beginning of my intervention, suggesting that I wouldn't reduce the time for the other request. And then we went to another attempt to have a sincere approach to getting this committee moving and getting things done, which was offered by the Bloc. So that's where we landed, and where hopefully we'll land here today and move on. If not, if we don't get this done in the next few minutes with regards to this, then I guess we have to call another meeting. Or do we extend? I'm not sure in terms of procedure for that, but that's where we could end up if that's where the members want to go, and continue the process.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. We still have resources, I believe, until 6:40 or more or less. 6:30, 6:40. And just as a reminder, colleagues, we're still on the amendment. I thought we were about to get this meeting over with, but we're still on the amendment of Mr. Villemur as sub-amended by MP Damoff. Monsieur Villemur, la parole est à vous.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to bring the temperature down a little bit and try to bring this conversation into a state of good faith. We all agree we need to do something. We all agree that this is important, yes, but what we don't agree on is when we should take action. I would invite my friends from the official opposition to, they can oppose things for sure, but I would ask them not to filibuster. We're not saying this isn't important. We're not saying that. We're simply saying that the meetings should be held at a time when people are actually paying attention. That's it. This is such an important issue that this is not a time to try to score points and show that the others are wrong. Instead, we need to take concrete action when people are actually paying attention. And I would invite all my colleagues to take a deep breath and to consider what truly is the wisest course of action and move forward with the amendment as proposed. Thank you, Mr. Villemur. I appreciate what you said, Mr. Brock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To address Mr. Villemur's latest comments about the utility of a meeting when Parliament resumes, because presumably people are paying more attention, really belittles the issue that's before this committee right now, is that we've got an explosive scandal that is some 7 times the size of the ArriveCan scandal that I still get commentary on, that Canadians are still talking about, that the government is doing nothing in terms of trying to recoup the lost tens of millions of dollars. And now we've got a scandal that is, according to the deputy minister for industry, is akin to the sponsorship scandal, close to $500 million. If that doesn't cry out for some degree of urgency, I don't know what does. It certainly, in my view, attracts the attention of Canadians. Yes, most Canadians are on holidays right now, but Canadians could be on holidays through the entire year. This scandal strikes at the core of good governance. And what we have right now is a failed Liberal government that simply disregards the interests of the taxpayer time after time after time. I've lost track, Mr. Chair, as to how many active RCMP investigations are currently underway with respect to the actions of this government. So I find it appalling, quite frankly, when my NDP colleague, Mr. Massey, displays his anger and his disgust that we wanted to insist on an earlier meeting. The wording of our motion was abundantly clear. It wasn't after 4 weeks, it was within 4 weeks. We are here in Ottawa today. We are here to press upon our colleagues and to press upon the chair that this matter is of some urgency, needs to be addressed. Yes, I too would like to be back in my community. I've missed 2 very important events in my community. I'm missing events with my family right now. But the nice thing, Mr. Chair, with our role as politicians, we are politicians for the entire year. Our work doesn't end at the middle of June, and we resume again in September. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can fulfill our obligations on this committee to ensure that taxpayers are receiving good value for their money, and to hold the government to account, and be there for our community as well. So I take offense to some of the comments made by Mr. Massey. We are not playing games here. We all want to get to the heart of the matter, and we want to shed true light on this scandal to find out what exactly has transpired over the last 3 years with the SDTC, and how taxpayers can expect to receive some portion of that money back.
Merci. Monsieur Massé, la parole est à vous.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll respond when I'm brought up. And I'm sorry that Mr. Brock finds it offensive, but Mr. Brock wasn't here when his colleagues filibustered this committee hours and hours and days, preventing us from getting to this issue and other things that were actually on the table. And so that's actually on the public record and was done within the House of Commons time. So here, what we're discussing, yes, it is within the 4 weeks is what the request was. But after that, is if it was at the end of those 4 weeks, there are only a few business days left before starting. And this will be the first time, I believe, in my, I think, 18 years here at this committee, where we will actually have business on the first day. My 23 years in Parliament, but this will be the first time when we actually have employment of this committee deployed to have substance and meetings immediately. That has never happened before. Might be the first time in the history of this meeting. So I'm sorry that Mr. Brock's disappointed with that, but at the same time, when you're looking at trying to get this public servants coming forward, probably to do this properly and to continue our studies that we have, then why are we going then to try to force something to happen in the short term and reemploy everything right now versus the few days that are left over from when we could have actually had this and when we start again and do it properly. And we'll also have all the access to the features of the House of Commons to deal with it, which is going to be important because we're going to have an officer of Parliament here that's responsible to all of Parliament, not just this committee. And second to that, we're also going to be able to provide enough time and place to get a response from Mrs. Verscharen, who I can't remember if it was her or someone else. We almost had to come close to subpoenaing to getting to this this committee. So given that we have those obstacles practically in front of us is one of the reasons why I still believe that it was reasonable to come in here today to lay out our meeting, because if we don't get this done today on that, then we would then have to have another meeting, or we'd still have to plan for that first meeting coming back. So if we don't pass this, and I thought that was a decent compromise for everybody, is a guarantee that this is going to happen. And that was the full thing that we could do today and still can, is to guarantee that when we resume this House, we get to an issue where there actually has been all-party support in many respects with different shades on it, but still there, and we actually make it happen right away and can actually have the full resource of the House. So I'll keep responding if we want to, if people are disappointed to me, because I'm not going to let it stand that we didn't come here and we haven't been responsible. In fact, we've been consistently calling for further supports for this, including the whistleblowers for it, and that's what I'll be looking for when we return as to how they're actually going to have improvements for them. I've had motions in the past that were dealing with their situations, and I'll continue to raise those on a continual basis and try to employ opportunities for them to be heard as well. And this was a start, and I didn't even raise that component to add it here because I wanted to make sure we were going to get those meetings done right away. And we're going to be able to hear from them in the meantime. They're going to hear this, and whether they're going to be interested in participating. I have been in touch with a couple of them right now to hear what they're thinking. They're seeing what's going on here today, and I'm going to be focusing on that and also letting them get prepared to see what's going to happen, because those are the families and the people at the end of it, the day that we need to protect. And those are the people that I'm most interested in as well, because they've been left out there. So they will get an opportunity now to see what's happened today, see what's on the public record, prepare themselves, see what we're going to do as a committee, and if they want to come forward at some point in time, I'll be proposing an opportunity to do so. But I want to make sure that they are protected and they have the opportunity to do that.
Merci, Monsieur Massé. Monsieur Perkins.
Thanks. Just quickly, I mean, MP Massey is not the only one that's been in contact with the whistleblowers. I've had a lot of conversations with them since this became an issue, and they went public on it after their unsatisfactory response from the government. So, and in fact, we've had them in. And I think you were referring on the subpoena. I don't know if it was in this committee or another committee that we were doing that, but just to be clear and to reiterate, you know, we've had great conversations to try and get to today, and as some of the members know, at least the opposition members, our original proposal was for 2 weeks. And in the spirit of compromise, we said, well, let's give the clerk and the committee a little more time, but somewhere in there, it could happen next week, it could happen 2 weeks from now, to provide a little more flexibility, also given the schedule of some members, to allow that to happen. And through that process, we've now gotten to a position where 2 meetings for 4 hours has been put down to 1 meeting and has been pushed off. So I think there was a lot of compromise going on before we got to this meeting. to try and accommodate everyone. And so for anyone to suggest that I or anyone else was playing political games, I think the political games have gone on here where motions have been proposed contrary to the conversations, amendments have been proposed contrary to the conversations that were had before that with the parties in the opposition about what would happen. So all of a sudden, and it's both sides. All of a sudden, on both sides of the opposition table, in terms of the other parties, the contradictions have happened here in the committee. So I'm just pointing out that I'm more than willing to prepare and do all those compromises and work on that stuff together beforehand in the meetings as we do, but only if people live by those things when they come to this meeting, and they don't seem to do that. And it's happened here through the two motions and supporting the motions of the amendments to my motion, which are contrary to the compromise motion that we agreed to. So if you want to air dirty laundry in public, we can air dirty laundry in public. I don't want to do that. But I don't want to do that. But well, I'm just going by what you're telling. But if you want to get the floor, you can get the floor, and I know you'll put your hand up, MP Massey. So if you want to start doing that stuff in public, we can. But you're the one that raised it in public and said that those and flipped on some of the things that we talked about. So, and I appreciate that you are denying the conversations we had. So anyway, at the end of the day, this isn't about you. It isn't about me. It's about the corruption that's gone on here, and trying to get to the bottom of this in a timely manner. And that was the simple request, is to get to this in a timely manner. And the timely manner is not 2 months from now, when we have it before us now. And the extra time was just to allow a little more flexibility than my original 2 weeks. And so some of the government members have recognized, but not all, that there is a problem here, because some members have said, even today, that there's a problem and they're willing to do it. Others have made different comments. But in the end of the day, our first business back, as I understand it, was not a steering committee or business meeting. It was a continuation of clause by clause of C-27, the privacy bill. That's already on the schedule. And I assume, and I'm not sure what filibusters were referred to, because we had 21 hearings on C-27, followed by 10 meetings so far on clause by clause on C-27, which was where we were at the end of the day, and a bit of time on the NDP leader's private members bill that had to be dealt with by this committee. That list since last fall, I haven't seen filibustering in this committee, except for the last 5 meetings on clause by clause, where the Liberals basically continue to talk about one amendment through 5 meetings. So maybe it's the Liberals that you're referring to about the filibustering that was going on in committee, but it wasn't us over those 21 meetings plus the 6 meetings for MP Singh's bill. So I'll leave it there.
Merci, Monsieur Perkins. Monsieur Massé, non, c'est pas nécessaire. Que je ne vois pas d'autres orateurs.
Seeing no other speakers in presence or online, we will now vote on Mr. Villemur's amendment as amended by Ms. Damoff. On the amendment of Mr. Villemur, please.
Mr. Turnbull.
Yes.
Ms. Damoff.
Yes.
Mr. Gahir.
Yes.
Mr. Souza.
Yes.
Mr. Badaway.
Yes.
Mr. Perkins.
No.
Monsieur Généreux.
No.
Mr. Cooper.
No.
Mr. Brock.
No.
Monsieur Villemur.
En faveur.
Mr. Massey.
Oui.
Donc, l'amendement est adopté.
The amendment is carried. Yes, I see that there's quite some excitement about it. And now, the motion as amended. Let us now vote on the main motion as amended by Mr. Villemur.
The vote is on the motion as amended.
Can you read the motion just so we're clear on what we're... Good.
So, Essentially, just to recap, with the amendment by Mr. Villemur, it would be that it be the first item of business when we resume in September, that we have a 3-hour meeting with 1 hour with the Ethics Commissioner and 2 hours with Annette Verschuren, first item of business in September when we come back. So that is the essentially the motion we're voting on as amended. Madame la Greffière.
Mr. Turnbull,
Yes.
Mr. Moff,
Yes.
Mr. Gahir,
Yes.
Mr. Souza,
Yes.
Mr. Badaway,
Yes.
Mr. Perkins,
A very reluctant yes.
Mr. General,
Wait.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Brock,
Yes.
Monsieur Villemur,
En faveur.
Mr. Massey.
Oui.
Amazing, colleagues. So the motion is adopted, which is the only item of business we had today for this committee. And it's been a great pleasure to see you all. And I can't wait to see you back in the fall. Thank you very much. Et la rencontre est ajournée. Bon été.
The meeting is adjourned. Have a good summer.